And we have been joined right now by Fiona Nicholson. So thank you, Fiona, for joining us. And Fiona is also a seasoned veteran of home education and the battles that have gone alongside that over the years, which we're wanting to talk about quite a bit today. Is like what have we seen happening in the UK over the past couple of decades? What can we learn from that? So, Fiona, would you like to just introduce yourself, please?
Hi, does this work? Can you hear me and see
We can
me?
hear you. You're good.
Wow, already that surprises me. Okay, so I got involved with home education politics 20 years ago, um, when my son was probably 11 or 12. I honestly don't, and I only have the one child, so I don't know how anybody with more than one child or with small children manages to do all the campaigning, and activism that people manage. So props to people who do that. Anyway, so I waited till he was 10 or 11, and I got involved first of all at a local level in Sheffield, where I live, where I just made myself known to the local authority and I became an educational otherwise local contact. And I would say it's been more or less relentless, sounds a bit sort of overstated, but it has
But
actually,
you're not wrong.
it's,
No, you're not wrong.
um, it's never gone away. We've always been sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And by the time I became involved, as I say, like 2004, 2005, I was talking to people who'd already been looking at the politics of home education and, trying to preserve freedoms for at least like the past 10, 15 years before that. So it's been going on for a good long while that local government and national government have been saying there are far too many of the wrong sort of home educators. It used to be good. It used to be good. There was some golden age in the past where just a few of the right sort of people did it. But now it's all gone to pot, and it really
Emphasis on the few.
yes, and it really has to be stopped. And so we had home education guidelines in 2006, 2007, also around about that time, children missing education. So as soon as the guidelines came in 2000, early 2007, there was the idea that it's not going to stop there because there's this other thing creeping up, which is children missing education, and the idea that bizarrely local authorities are going to have to try and find every single child who isn't in school and work out where they are and what they might be doing. So we had these guidelines which were okay in 2007, but there was all this other stuff kind of brewing. And then by 2009, we had the Graham Badman, air quotes, independent review of elective home education, which was very much from a safeguarding perspective and also from a perspective of defining suitable education. I mean, the thing is, sorry, this is all one sentence, I think, is that suitable education is defined in law. It's suitable to age, ability, aptitude, and any special educational needs the child may have. But there's just been a persistent myth, which I have to think that people believe, in government, which says there isn't any definition of suitable education. It's very woolly. We don't know what we're supposed to be checking against. We should bring in standards of literacy and numeracy, and somebody should see the child to make sure they are learning what they're supposed to be learning, and that they're safe. And really, there've been variants of that
Yeah, and
for.
there's been all kinds of little snippets clipped in, like actually, I do remember. So the day after, I'm going to tell this story again. Sorry, Fiona, but the day after Badman was announced to be doing his review, it was January. It was really snowy, and Nicola and Fiona and I both had a meeting in Northallerton with North Yorkshire, and we were like looking at each other and thinking about this review the whole time we were in there, going, oh my goodness me, what's going to happen now? You know, we knew it was going to be bad. We just knew, Fiona. And then all that mission creep and stuff. There's all the little words, the little phrases keep coming in. So there's one that's keeps appearing right now, which is reassure us that there is a quiet place that your child has to study. What's that got to do with the price of eggs? That was in the Badman review, though, was all that stuff about having a place to study. What else?
Well,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
code for not living in the wrong, that means not living in the wrong postcode, doesn't it?
exactly,
Mm.
or not having too many cats. You know,
Yeah.
it can mean all sorts of things. Can that? There's another one. The best interest of your child, and who gets to decide that? That's something that's changed in this legislation that they're putting forward. That for some reason or other, the local authority are allowed to decide what's in the best interest of your child. And this is people making decisions about your child who have never met them, who do not know them. You know, and
I
all
think,
this stuff is just insidious, isn't it? It just keeps coming out, the same crap.
yeah. So when the Badman review was announced, um, okay, I was slightly biased because it was North Yorkshire and they were like a good local authority
They
at
were.
that point. And they didn't like it. And they were introducing us, and we already knew of other local authorities who were not keen and who were saying, this isn't going to do anybody any good and it's going to destroy relationships. And I remember sitting in meetings with Graham Badman, who literally was like, patting his breast pocket, like, like as if he had a checkbook in it. And when he was going, there's money for this, like everybody's going to be in favor of this. You might not think you need any support, but lots of families that I talk to want support. And, I imagine that they do, but
It's never been about support, has it?
there was never going to be any money for support. There wasn't going to be any money back in 2009, 2010. And there's certainly, even less now. But whenever the government wants to bring in more monitoring, that's when they start talking about support as well. And the dialogue always goes the same way. They claim that there are people that we don't know who really, really want support, and that therefore these measures will be helpful to everybody, even though local authorities could be helping the ones that they already knew about. Somehow some other intrusive safeguarding things need to happen first before anybody can get any support.
And we always get that. General, remember this as well, because it's gone on for years now, decades now. It's not you we're worried about. It's not
Yeah.
you we're worried about. You don't know that there's this mythical huge number of kids that allegedly they don't know about, and that they have no powers to support. And we have this over and over again. And over and over again, we get these myths, like in the Sarah Sharif case. And I'm sorry to bring her name up, but it is in everybody's minds at the moment. Multiple opportunities. They knew she was at risk before she was even born, but home education is the problem. And they claim home education allowed her to be hidden. The social services requirements are the same regardless of where you're at school. So it doesn't matter whether you're under child protection or at risk and you're at school or you're not at school. Social care, children's social care, have exactly the same duties and exactly the same powers. So this myth about all these people they don't know about, and you find me a home educated child who has not been known about before something happens to them, known by at least 5 different agencies, every single one that something has happened to.
I'm not disagreeing, but I do think that local authorities, and I'm saying this particularly from the perspective of special educational needs, they want to like delegate to schools, throw things off to schools as much as they possibly can.
They do.
Even if the child is not able to attend school, even if it's the worst possible environment, it's like, job done. Nobody can point a finger at us. It's the school that should have been doing something about it. So on the one hand, they would try and stop a child from being home educated. And then the reason they would give is they won't be seen by anybody and they won't be getting any support. Well, you're the same people that have made that choice to forget about them or ignore them once they're not at school.
Yeah.
They're not, people are not doing the job that they should be.
Exactly.
And then it becomes the fault of home educators over and over.
Well, I always say people are voting with their feet because something is wrong in the system very much. I mean, obviously all systems are flawed. You go into any system, because the nature of it, it will be flawed. And this idea that somehow the system is this perfect place where children will be seen and noticed and heard and have all the warm fuzzies of love and care, that is a myth, because children get lost in systems. They become a number. And I think, we don't want to compare ourselves. Hello, kitty cat. We don't want to compare ourselves with school necessarily, but it's just the unfairness of it. Excuse us. Thank you. But it's the injustice of it, I think, that gets to us, because the thing is that in any, even we know that all parents are not perfect. We know that there are many parents out there that are far from perfect. But by and large, within the home education movement, if you want to call it that, you don't find a lot of parents choosing home education just because it's a lot of work and because it's takes up your time and you can't go and get a job and these many reasons. A lot of people come to it because they don't feel there's another choice, and more so today than in the past. And there's this failure to look back at, well, what are we doing wrong in the system? What can we improve in the system to make it a better place for more children to be? Because even in my own schooling in South Africa years ago, it was a system, it wasn't perfect, but I don't actually remember the level of unhappiness we see in these schools today.
I think that a high number of home educated children in an area, whether that's an exodus from a particular school or just across the piece, there are a lot of home educators in the area. I think local authorities get very defensive about that because rightly they see it as
it's a reflection on themselves.
So for that reason, that's another reason why they would just like there to be less of it. They get very antsy about rising numbers. They're reassured to an extent by being able to say, oh, everybody's numbers are rising. It's not because we've got particularly bad schools, or it's not because we're particularly ineffective at kind of delivering special educational needs support. So they think it makes them look bad. They stress about it. This is local authorities. They stress about it because they know they're not going to have proper, they're not going to keep good records. They're not really going to know where people are. They're going to have loads of different systems, strange email systems. People are going to change jobs. So we're a massive inconvenience, and on a bureaucratic level and on a reputational level, it would just be easier if we didn't exist. And at the same time, it gets dressed up as we're just doing it because we want to put children first. We want to hear the voice of the child.
No, they don't.
Oh,
Lots of
bless.
people can
No, they don't.
support children if they're seen in school. And lots of parents do a fantastic job, but we do just want to make sure that, you know, we see children and make sure they're okay, because it's all about the child. And it really isn't.
No, it really isn't.
Eh,
One of the local authorities recently has put out some job adverts. I don't know whether you've seen, Fiona, but there's been a recent flurry of job adverts where they want people to come and work as elective home education officers within the authority to carry out their brave, robust, innovative programme to reduce home education by 30%.
Barnsley.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's a quiz. Termly check-ins. Milton Keynes.
yeah, and just to come back, so you've done a lot of work over the years, just really researching, reading, putting things out there, raising awareness, making sure people know what's happening. A very informative role, and obviously you've watched this pattern for a long time. Now, at the moment, with the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill, we are sitting now in quite a precarious position because it's gone quite far. We're waiting report stage in the House of Lords. What do you think we could be doing still about this bill?
I think we, you know, home educators across the piece are doing a lot and have been doing a lot. I'm not actually sure that there's more that we could be doing. I think it's a matter of just kind of not stopping.
Yeah, not giving up, and yeah.
It's been going on for a long time, and it was presented as a done deal when it first appeared, and it went through the House of Commons really quickly because that's always what happens, and you know, hardly anything got changed. And now I guess the most common question I get is like, well, what happened? Did it go away? Because it's still there, but we're not hearing anything about it anymore. So yeah, I think it's just, I don't know whether anybody is kind of deluding themselves that it's maybe gone away, but obviously it hasn't gone away.
No.
At some point there will be, probably before Christmas, but it could be just after Christmas, there will be, as you say, like report stage in the House of Lords, and then there will be a back and forth. Anything that the Lords has changed, the Commons might try to unchange. There'll be kind of sort of ping pong haggling over that, and then it will receive, assuming it goes through in some form, it will receive royal assent and become an act of parliament. But that just means that the government can start making regulations. So then it'll be it's really
another round of,
you know, it's a slog, because like, it's not as if we've lost when the bill becomes law, or if those measures become law, because there'll be a long period after that with consultations over secondary legislation, what goes in the regulations, who has to scrutinize those regulations, what goes in the guidance. And I'm imagining that at every stage, the people who want more monitoring and more control will be primed, you know, at every stage when there's like decisions to be made, they will pop up and start
in the ears, yeah,
and start finding any, you know, horror stories that they can, or dredging up like previous stories to say, like, you know, look, really something must be done.
So we have to be primed too. Really,
yes,
we've got to stay primed. We can't afford to relax at any point. Yeah.
Yes, it's very cheering. There are a lot of people
I know,
watching.
isn't it just lovely? Because there's so many years of my life gone already. And I think that's where I feel a bit resentful, because I feel like how many, even Joy Baker, you know, they where how many years of her life was spent fighting when she could have just been spending time with her children, doing
Yep.
all the lovely things. And we find amongst the home education community, there are some people who really get involved and want to fight back. But there are a lot of people who are just, you know what, I can't deal with it. I need to spend time with my children, do the lovely things. But it would be good if the second group could realize that they can only do the lovely things if the first group are fighting really hard. And that first group gets a little burnt out and exhausted. But if everyone does a little bit, we can all make a contribution. And at the moment, I think one of the things we've got the debate coming up. So Michelle had a petition out, withdraw the Children's Wellbeing in Schools bill, and through a massive push, we were able to get the required 100,000 signatures and more to bring it back for debate.
Yes.
So that the Parliament has to debate it. And now we've got a debate date for the 1st of December. And this is the time when people need to be contacting their MPs and saying, here's this petition. It got over 100,000 signatures. It's going to be debated. I need you to commit to being there to speak out on my behalf. Look how many people from your constituency signed it. That kind of thing. I think that is still something, that is an action that is very doable. People take half an hour to write that letter. It might not even take you half an hour. And get that letter off your MP, especially if your MP gets a few from their constituents. They're going to kind of have to do something about it, aren't they? I mean, that I think is still one tool we have at our disposal, is nagging and harassing our MPs.
Yeah, be a thorn in the side of your MP.
You say nagging and harassing, you know, I say being helpful.
Getting them to do their job.
No, but look at what happened with the special educational needs debate, where so many parents had managed to get to speak to their MPs and tell them their stories, and had obviously, you know, moved them to some extent, because one after another they were standing up and telling personal stories which cut through, you know, the rhetoric about and jargon about inclusion and whatever. It was
it's the lived experience of people.
Exactly, that's the key. The personal stories is the key. The key is to get the heart of your MP involved. You get the heart of your MP involved, you get their mind involved, and you get the heart involved by telling them the stories, by telling them how home education has helped your family and how the bill would affect that detrimentally.
Yeah, which is, you know, it's hard to do that, and it's upsetting to do that, but I think that's the level on which it works, rather than, you know, feeling that you have to say something really clever and legalistic and you know, make some kind of like logical argument. That's sadly not the level on which people make decisions.
Yeah, I think so. So perhaps this time around for this debate, don't worry so much about listing all the things that, you know, give your stories and what this bill, how it could impact your family. I think it's also worth pointing out, if you're one of those families where your child was actually really, really struggling in school, and where school was actually the source of their anxiety and their stress and whatever mental health problems they're having, I think it's worth mentioning that, and how home education has helped your child to recover. Because, you know, we were saying how a lot of people are home educating now because the children have special educational needs, they're being failed by the system and all of that. But even I said earlier today is that even when you've started home educating out of a voting with your feet or a negative reason, actually home education is hugely positive, and within a year or two you'll be home educating for positive reasons because you're seeing what it's done for your child. So these reasons that they keep giving in Parliament about how negative it's a negative thing why people are needing to home educate their children. We need, be encouraged and share that if it's become a positive for you. Because I think home education is incredibly healing in so many ways for a lot of people.
Yes, and so Alison mentioned earlier about the thing that's in the bill about the child's best interests. And for me, like right from the beginning, that was the worst bit about the children not in school part of this children's wellbeing in schools bill. The idea that firstly, if your child is in a special school, that the local authority will decide if home education is in the child's best interests as far as the local authority can see it. And also if, regardless of what type of school your child is in, if there is a formal child protection inquiry at the point when you want to take a child out of school, the local authority will decide best interests. And if you're already home educating and there's a formal child protection inquiry, again, the local authority gets to decide best interests. And I think if somebody doesn't hear our side of the story, then I guess that sounds reasonable. That like at the margins, we're not saying you can't do it. We're just saying that somebody has to sort of, take an extra close look because, and then the story against that is, well, look, these are the people who are going to be deciding best interests. This is what they've said so far is in my child's best interests. These are my child's interests that they have, persistently ignored, denied, challenged, minimized, whatever. So they're not just to sort of bring out the implications of a local government officer, or not even a person, probably just like a panel, so they can come back and go, panel said, and that's it.
Yeah, and just a point to say about child protection inquiries, the vast majority of them, more than 3/4 of them, are found not to have something that reaches the child protection threshold. So 3/4 of those families undergo the inquiry and then they go, no, they don't need a child protection plan. It's not that bad. So we're not even talking about the chances are something's happening. Add into that just because you're having a child protection inquiry does not mean that the child protection worries, concerns are anything to do with your home life.
Yes.
Yeah.
They might be school related. It might be that your kid's on drugs because every time they come out of the school gate, the drug dealer's there.
Yes. And so I don't think it will get anywhere because it didn't get anywhere at an earlier stage in the House of Lords. But Baroness Barron has just brought back her amendment for report stage, which is going further than just saying current child protection. And she's proposing, if there's been we know why, if there's been historic child protection, or even if the child has a child in need plan or has ever had a child in need plan. So that's
which the child might have because they're autistic.
That's any child with a disability.
Absolutely. Yep.
If the local authority is doing their job properly, and they often don't want to make child in need plans, but in theory, it could be any child with a disability.
Yep.
And so we slide from, certain sorts of children are, possibly more vulnerable. Let's just take a closer look. And then that, I think those children, those families already very embattled, we're going to find it really hard. Really hard, because the local authority will be the ultimate arbiter, and to an outsider, unless we explain why, that's maybe going to sound reasonable. Obviously, it doesn't sound
But you know,
reasonable.
if only they were so concerned about the children in school that are struggling, that are being put in isolation booths, that are, you know, leaving the premises and nobody notices. If only they were so concerned about those. And you know, you mentioned earlier about the children's voice. They're not ever talking about going and asking children in school what they want. There's this very condescending assumption that they know what children want and need, but no actual desire to understand it. And I think that really frustrates me a lot, because I know that if they did go and ask every child in school, you know, about and the good childhood society, they do their report every year, don't they? The good childhood report, I think it is. And you know, they do ask children, and the more recent one was quite damning of schools, where it sort of linked the children's unhappiness to school. And you know, there's just this absolute blinkered approach where we don't really want to hear that. We don't want to see it. It does not fit the narrative that we want for this. And yeah, so which means that the Department for Education has a £90 million PR budget, so they can keep pushing what they want down our throats. You know, so they can keep promoting it. Well, I call it propaganda, and you know, to convince us that free breakfast clubs are going to solve all the problems in schools and what have you. I keep saying, well, if it's so marvelous, why are you having to push it so hard? Surely, if it was marvelous, people would see it, you know.
Yeah, but there, I mean, you know, there is going to be already brewing a perfect storm, isn't there? Because children are meant to be in school every day, you know, even if like they're very unwell. And children are likely to be prevented from leaving school, you know, coming out of school. So and new special schools are not going to be built, and mainstream schools can't cope with the variety of different children that they have, and the very like narrow prescriptive curriculum that they have to try and, you know, drag all the children through to keep a certain pace. So I mean, we're doing them a favor.
Yeah, we are, and we're taking some of that pressure off them. Yeah, yeah. It's a very difficult thing, and I think, you know, what I just would love proper engagement with our, you know, our home educating families, to really actually seek to understand, um, and a proper understanding of what children need. Because I mean, if you unpack all of that, just for starters, I don't think they're really interested in how children learn, and that children learn better this way or that way, or that it's, you know, I don't think they're really interested in that, because none of it fits. But we can't be defeatist, and I think this is what I'd like the takeaway to be, is we can't just say, oh well, they're never going to listen, because the way, I mean, you've said that we're doing a lot, and I see it as a shift, turning of the dial. You know how you have a dial, and you've got to, you know, you might have someone whose position is all the way this way over on the dial, and if we can just shift that dial over a few notches closer to our position, and that's what we can do through writing to MPs, to posting on our social media about our home education journey, raising awareness, and that kind of
We're
thing.
already seeing a shift with some MPs. So if you look even recently, you'll see there's more questions coming through. Now, these are questions they should have asked when it was in the House of Commons. Fortunately, they didn't. But this means MPs are finally listening to constituents going in and saying, hang on, but like Josh McAllister's answer today, asked about the children's wellbeing and schools bill, and referred back to the children not in school register consultation in 2019, which quite clearly had nothing to do with this bill, because they haven't done proper consultation. They haven't done their homework for this bill. These are questions that should have been asked earlier, haven't been, but now the answers are coming out. It's sort of falling apart. And if we can get the MPs to keep chipping away, and we can keep getting these answers, if we get enough early enough, it also helps the House of Lords, because they can then
work on that because they've got some actual material to work with.
Yeah.
It is about chipping away, because I can't think of another like lobbying group, interest group, which is so aware of legislation, you know, the day that a bill is published, like when it has its first reading, there are, you know, hundreds of people in the home education community poring over it and starting to write digests, you know, put things out on the internet and in groups like the next day. So even if, and writing to their MPs about it and talking to MPs who are on committees. So even if at every stage we feel that nobody is really listening, they are actually being, not exactly bombarded, but they're hearing from a home educator nearly every day, nearly all the time, nearly everywhere, I would say. And I think it is just a matter of, you know, chipping away.
Yeah.
Chipping away,
Well,
because
I hope it
it's
is
not finished yet.
Yeah, I hope that is the case. And if you haven't written to your MP yet, anyone out there, please just, you'll be encouraged by what Fiona is saying, and get a letter off today. I just want to share some comments with you, Fiona, that we've had. Cathy Koetsier, she said, by the way, Fiona, you rock. I love how calm and wise and articulate you are. So thank you, Fiona. Although Cathy also said she thinks she needs to take a walk because her blood pressure is rising, just listening to all of this. And then Amy's just shared, we've been monitoring MP response rates on the action group, and we've had a 52% response rate from MPs. So we are getting through, and you've got a good chance of getting a response from your MP if you write to them. So please, you know, don't give up yet. Don't sort of feel like it's a done deal. It is far from it. We've pushed it this far. We've managed to see it dragged out this far.
Yeah. And even if you get a stop response, because, you know, the go-to in the first instance will be that MPs are given like a library briefing type answer, will be some sort of, you know,
cut and paste
that they can just like copy. So whatever question you've asked or whatever point you've raised, you'll just get this standard thing and you'll think, they haven't listened, they just, but then keep going, because they can't, you know, at some point it'll be easier to listen than not listen.
It's kind of that thing where tell me you haven't read my email without telling me you haven't read my email. You know, said, and what we're telling people is that once they respond to you, then you can respond to them on the specific points. And because you've now written a second time, they can't send you the same letter again. Yeah. So they have to address it. So anyway, thank you so much just for spending time with us today, Fiona. You're welcome to linger here if you feel like it.